Death Note is a very interesting phenomenon in that despite being over 10 years old, it never ceases to drop in popularity. But this isn't surprising at all. The show is masterfully crafted and loaded with suspense. The mental chess battle between Light and L is deeply engaging to watch, and the underlying themes that this show presents makes for some great discussion that's highly relevant even in this day and age. However, there seems to be a certain aspect to this show that we might have overlooked, and today I hope to shed some light on it. And straight into that one. I am here to talk about Light's incredible emotional intelligence and how he uses this to manipulate others. And for this, I will be using the infamous scene between Light and Naomi. I also decided to break this into two parts because there is just so much to cover. In this video, I'll be covering how Light Yagami makes general rapport with people. Now, fair warning before I start, there are some major spoilers ahead, so if you haven't watched Death Note, do yourself a favor and go watch it right now. With that being said, let's do this. According to Daniel Kahneman's book Thinking Fast and Slow, the human mind is made up of basically two systems of thought. System 1 is our animal mind, and it is fast, instinctive and emotional. This is very primal to us and it has been developed over thousands of years of evolution. System 2 is what we know as the rational mind. It is slow, deliberate and logical. Now, despite what we'd like to think, we are not rational creatures, and System 1 is far more influential than System 2. This is because each and every one of us has a very distorted view of reality, which has mostly been shaped by the emotions we have experienced in our past. And it's exactly these emotions and feelings present in our System 1 which guide our so-called rational actions and choices present in System 2. Now, think about that for a moment. If you were to tap into System 1 of a person's mind, you could pretty much control their System 2 action, and this is exactly what Light Yagami does. The scene begins with Light entering the Special Investigation Task Force department. His father's cell phone is switched off and the department seems to be surprisingly empty. In here, he finds a woman at the reception saying she has some valuable information regarding the Kira case.
Hi, I'm Detective Soichiro Yagami's son, Light Yagami. I brought my father a change of clothes, but it doesn't look like he's in.
Light addresses his connection to the task force almost immediately by stating that he's Soichiro Yagami's son. Now watch how Light conveniently does not seem to remember the receptionist.
Hey, I haven't seen you in a while, Light.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What, you don't remember? You helped solve the insurance fraud murder investigation sometime last year.
Now, it might not look like the woman is paying any attention to the conversation, but you can bet that she's hearing all of this and has subconsciously created an image of Light as a capable, up-and-coming detective. Remember that a third-party validation is always more effective than someone talking big about themselves. And Light is a master of the indirect game. But that's something I'll cover in the next video. Let's keep watching.
But hey, no one remembers the receptionist, do they?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm terrible with faces. I just need to sign my name on this form, right?
So, Light, does this mean you're going to be helping us with the Kira investigation too?
Sure. If all goes well, maybe I'll find Kira before Elle does.
Find him before Elle does.
Notice how her eyes pop wide open. She is clearly intrigued. Of course, if this woman was looking into the Kira case, she had to be aware of Elle. What with this whole dramatic entrance earlier and all. It's much more effective when we learn that she has closer ties to him. With Light not only claiming that he's working on the case but also casually throwing in that he could do it faster than Elle, he's putting himself in that conversation of being at par with the guy. It's kind of like when Conor McGregor started trash talking Floyd Mayweather. This seed of thought has been planted and it will pay off greatly in many unexpected ways later on. Light very smoothly tells the woman he can help her connect with his dad. But as we know, his dad's cell phone is switched off, so they decide to take a walk and pass some time. And it's in this moment the woman reveals her name to be Shoko Maki. Light leads the conversation by providing his opinion on the case.
I I've been thinking about Kira's powers, and I believe they enable him to somehow control his victims before they die.
Here, he does not throw her off by giving her any false observation because Light's main goal is to get to the truth, and the only way to do that is by building trust.
So do I.
Notice that Maki jumped in front of Light almost on impulse. Light had already planted the thought that he was on par with L, and now he is following through on that reputation. Out of excitement that someone else shares similar opinion on the case, Maki immediately spills out what she knows.
It's odd that you say that because that's exactly what I've been thinking. Kira's able to control their actions before he kills them, but there's more to it. If my analysis so far is correct, Kira can kill in a number of ways, not just with a heart attack.
Now would be a good time to investigate her character because this is a rather odd behavior. Throughout her screen time, Maki is very calm and collected and only breaks this character few times. This usually happens when Light validates her theory.
The more I think about it, the more your theory makes sense to me. We can't waste any time. We need to start investigating it right away.
What? Really? Do you mean that?
Your testimony could be central to the case.
It could.
Now there has to be some reason behind this emotional response, and as it turns out, there actually is. To understand it, we have to move back to the time when Maki was talking with her fiancé, Ray Penberg.
Some junkie robbed a bank 2 days ago, and I guess he wanted to try taking on a bus today. I didn't think this kind of thing happened here.
So you were already riding the bus when the hijacker got on?
Yeah. And in the end, the guy freaked out, jumped off the bus, and got hit by a car.
Did he die?
Yeah, probably. I couldn't really stick around to see what happened to him.
You know, it's a little hard to believe that that was all a coincidence, don't you think?
What do you mean?
Think about it. You got on that bus because you were investigating someone, right? And now you're telling me that this criminal is most...
You can see Maki processing all this information Ray is giving her. It is very clear she far outclasses him in terms of sheer skill. But instead of taking her help, watch how Ray reacts.
Doesn't that suggest that you...
That's enough. Look, darling, you and I know you used to be one of the best agents in the FBI. But now you're my fiancé, Naomi. We talked about this. You're not an agent anymore, so just leave it alone.
But...
You wouldn't get involved with the Kira case, and you wouldn't do anything dangerous. That's what you promised when we decided you'd come with me so I could meet your parents in Japan. You do remember that, don't you?
Yeah, I guess you're right. It's just force of habit. Sorry about it.
There is a lot of information in this exchange. First, Maki can't help work her detective skills, but she is being held back. Second, she may have some self-doubt going on. Who knows, she could have had a rough experience at her workplace, which in this show mostly comprises of men. Considering how bizarre the Kira case is, she has to be very careful as to who she relays this information to. The only person who could process all of this without any sort of judgment would have to be Elle. But then Light comes along and is in complete agreement with her theory. He supports her in a way even her fiancé did not. She can't help but develop a connection with this guy. It isn't explicitly stated, but I'm sure Light is aware of this. He often lets her know he's paying attention to her by simply mirroring what she says in his own words.
So what you're saying is anytime Kira wants one of his murders to go undetected, he wouldn't use a heart attack.
Right.
So the busjacker didn't die of a heart attack. And based on that, you're saying Kira has other ways of killing people?
Yeah.
And now you're convinced that Kira can kill without using a heart attack?
Now we know that Light is adept at social skills, and yet he doesn't talk a whole lot here. In fact, it's Maki who's doing most of the talking. This is because having great social skills is not about who talks more, but it is about how best to hold a good conversation. And Light is doing the most important part here. He's listening. Chris Voss in his phenomenal book Never Split the Difference says the best way to negotiate is by calming the schizophrenic. Many times when two people are in a conversation, they are listening to the voice in their own head. The voice that makes all the assumptions. The voice that is thinking of all these different things to say. But when they're doing this, they aren't listening to what the other person is saying or are selectively listening. They are looking to find things that are consistent with the assumptions they've made rather than the actual truth. And when the other person behaves in a way that is not congruent with this, they go ahead and call that person irrational, when actually it's all due to the misguided assumptions that they have made in the first place. The quickest way to eliminate this voice in the head is by making the other person the sole focus of the conversation. In doing so, you also help the other person eliminate the voice in their head. You must focus on discovering the truth rather than looking for consistency. This is exactly what Light is doing by listening. He is hanging by every single word Maki says, carefully reviewing each new piece of information. And when he finds a point of interest, he prods her along that direction by asking carefully calibrated questions that will eventually reveal the truth.
Wouldn't it be better if your friend spoke to them instead?
It probably would, but he's no longer alive.
So, what makes you think he met Kira on that bus?
Because 8 days after that bus was hijacked, he died.
It might seem awfully strange that someone as smart as Maki is revealing so much information, but the truth is she has very little control over the conversation right now. Light has made her feel so emotionally secure that words just start rolling from her mouth. What's especially impressive here is that he hasn't used any outside information. He hasn't tried to add anything major to the conversation. He hasn't even tried in the least to switch topics. All he is doing here is simply mirroring, paraphrasing and summarizing the information that Maki is providing him. Light is playing a mental jujitsu here where he uses the opponent's energy and simply guides it towards an endpoint where he wants. This process is simple, it is effortless and above all, it is efficient. Through this process, Light learns about Maki's suspicion that her fiancé had met Kira during the bus hijacking. If L were to get this bit of information, he would no doubt be able to prove that Light is Kira. After uncovering the truth and realizing she's too big a threat, Light decides to write her name in the death note. But as we all know, Maki turned out to be an alias, and Light cannot kill her without her real name. This is when things start to get tense, and it is also when Light really steps up his game. More on that in the next video.